Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the CATCHJSBUFORD show. Today we'll be covering ground that's a little bit different than the topics that are typically covered on this channel. The relevance of African American studies, why activism matter, and the importance of winning. I recently had an exchange with an AFAM student at the University of Michigan while crutching some busy work at a coffee shop. Go figure, that's where I'm at right now, right? I saw that he had a women's study book at his side, and I simply asked him if he was enrolled in the women's study program, and he shared excitedly that he had taken on African American studies and African studies as a major, and I was instantly curious and asked why AFAM studies. He shared that he hailed from a mixed family and was born and raised primarily on the quote-unquote white side of his family, and took a curiosity in AFAM studies as a means to understand why the African American community behaved the way it did and why certain conditions persist. And he desired to learn more about a part of his identity that he felt he had been sheathed from. He shared how AFAM studies opened his eyes about his identity, and it's in a much deeper way. It helped him understand not only why certain conditions exist, but how they came to be. And it also helped him understand and made him acutely aware of how little people are taught and how little individuals know about the history of people of African descent. He came to realize that African Americans, with few exceptions, are almost completely ignorant to the relevance of their own history and have no idea, matter of fact, how deeply that ignorance runs. And perhaps more importantly, he now understood how AFAM studies could help him and so many others find and understand his and their place in the community and in the world. At some point, he asked me why I thought AFAM history was so absolutely important. And this is the abbreviated version of my response to him. You know, when you know who and whose you are, you don't behave as if you're born from concrete. See, when you can be genetically and divinely designed for success, but if you don't know the stock or the cloth that you're cut from, as opposed to conducting yourself like eagles, you'll conduct yourself more like chickens, absent knowledge of self. When you know whose shoulders you stand on, when you know the sacrifices that are made on your behalf, when you know it in your bones, you have a greater respect for your predecessors and consequently for yourself. You can't convince me that things wouldn't be different. If more of us were familiar with and knew whose shoulders we stood on, that is, right? The shoulders of individuals like Angela Davis, Martin and Malcolm, James Baldwin, Mandela, Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Nkrumah, Patrice Lumumba, Du Bois, Washington, T. Thomas Fortune, Langston Hughes, Zora Neale Hurston, Claude McKay, Amiri Baraka, Sammy Davis Jr., Robeson, Zora Neale Hurston, Sojourner Truth, Richard Allen, William Rowe Trotter, Cornish, Ruggles, Toussaint Overture, Nat Turner, Amenhotep III, Amina Nefertiti, Makeda, Sundiata Keita, Mansa Musa, Reginald Lewis, Johnny Cochran, Vincent Harding, O.W. Gurley of Black Wall Street, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Jesse Owens, Thurgood Marshall, Huey Newton, Bobby Seale, Carver, the Snifkins Comet. I mean, the list can go on and on. That our story is not just one of squalor and simply slavery and forced bondage, a story of lack and just simply stringent survival, that we participate and we hail from a river that birthed nations, science, philosophy, that our story is a river of abundance, triumph, invention, splendor, and success, that we're not simply dogs to be kicked around by the authorities, scrambling for scraps and leftovers off counters and boardrooms, that our ingenuity and blood was spent to make possible today. If they knew they were part of this river, birthed from this river, we wouldn't have to debate why it's important to see each other, identify with each other, refer to each other as brothers and sisters, as opposed to the scurrilous alternatives that are out there. Parents wouldn't shove their children into the waiting arms of a welfare system and a court system that has to stabilize families, criminalize financial instability, and stigmatize our youth. We wouldn't fall into the bankrupt parroting, the media-sponsored parroting, and the monetary-induced governing of our young as monsters and menaces. We remember that the greatest trick the devil ever played on humankind is to dupe us into believing he doesn't exist. As the prison industrial complex and its tentacles hunt, demoralize, and cripple, and throw away young men and women alike, eviscerate entire communities. Now, I encourage everyone to read the Detroit Free Press article published October 20th, 2016, titled "U of M Professor Says War on Crime Helped Fuel Detroit's Decline," referencing the work of author Heather Ann Thompson. It's amazing when you come to understand how many of us unwittingly bought into the destruction of our own communities. We would embrace entrepreneurship with more fervor. More of our men would strive and compete rather than settle into simple mediocrity. History creates a common vision, a common purpose, a common sense of entry, departure, and destination among people and communities. There would be more cohesion, more self-sufficiency. These are the fruits of shared historical understandings and cultural recognitions. All you have to do is look at cities like Dearborn, communities like Mexican Town, and other ethnic enclaves and communities to see what I'm referring to. Indeed, the African diaspora is huge and diverse. There will always be divergences and disagreements at the end of the day. However, having a shared destination and moderately common visions, it simply doesn't require homogeny, right? So our exchange was also a pleasant reminder that activists matter. Sometimes the activists, you have to be willing to accept the fact that you may not be the ones to harvest the seeds you plant. And they may not be harvested for years to come, matter of fact. I couldn't help but smile as this gentleman shared with me how he was inspired by the Black Action movements that occurred at the University of Michigan years ago, and the efforts of the Student of Color Coalition Tower Takeover, how these movements inspired the pursuit of AFAM studies. And because of my predecessors at the University of Michigan and those whom I was fortunate to serve with during my matriculation there, he was able to pursue a degree rather than a certification of AFAM studies. One of the fruits of our activist labors during that time was the departmentalization of the Center for Afro-American Studies. The result was the provision of more avenues for African-American professors to pursue tenure. The research is conclusive. The greater the presence of African-American educators, or the greater presence that is African-Americans, have a correlative impact on the chances of success among African-American students. It was a big deal. And here was this gentleman picking the harvest, right in front of me, testifying. By virtue of his academic pursuits, our efforts inspired him to become an activist in his community and believe he could bring about change as well. It's imperative for those who carry a spirit of activism to continue to win professionally, personally, in business, and in life. One of the greatest gifts we can give the community is just simply to win. Examples of what can happen when conscientious individuals among us begin to focus and lead the way, inspire successors. And at the end of the day, that is what it's all about. Speaking of the Student of Color Coalition and change agents, we lost a tremendous leader, a tremendous spirit and trailblazer, and Nef, as I knew her, and others as Nef Abdul. You are and will be sorely missed, sister. And know that your efforts and your sacrifice and your example is not in vain. Goodbye for now.